Welcome everybody to the Area 111 live stream. This is your host RH. Yeah, it's getting kind of hard to track down all those ones I have to put out there. This goes back to the deplatforming of this channel multiple times and that kind of thing. Just for basically having casual conversations and talking about current events and everything they do, but without the Mockingbird Media scripts. You know what I mean? We expose that. We expose that here on this channel. We sit there and think about the broader criminal conspiracy to overthrow our president that's been going on for quite some time. The libel from the what do you call that? MSM libel slander going out every day, basically calling us law-abiding American citizens, Nazis, we're a cult and all that stuff because we support President Trump, and Christian principles, at least a little bit of a foundation of morality, some semblance of that. We're going to go through a little bit about history here, and we're going to talk about it and let's be frank, huh? Let's be frank. Let's just basically expose these morons, as far as we can. And okay, so that's disrespectful. Calling the guys, I'm already starting out calling people names, right? Let's talk about let's say the final countdown of MAD. What am I referring to as far as MAD is concerned? What am I referring to as far as MAD is concerned? Well, let's see. Mutually assured destruction. I mean, that's the path they seem like they always want us on. They want the pressure of the United States of America into basically going into a direct war, kinetic war with Russia, so they can sit back and watch what they believe to have two birds destroyed with one stone, right? Let's just kill them both off. I hear the intelligentsia is still out there full force. You know what I mean? Those people can't take a break, even though they've been retired for years. They want to be somehow, I don't know, legitimate. In the 21st century, they want to basically stake their claim as far as the narrative is concerned. It's ridiculous, going out there and saying right before this meeting with President Trump and Putin in Alaska. By the way, Alaska is not Russia. If the president slipped up, I guess you love that kind of thing, right? You love that kind of thing. Going out there right before a meeting with President Trump and Putin in Alaska, saying that Trump was behind the assassination of Vladimir Putin in May. I guess that's one way to throw a monkey wrench into it, isn't it? The all-knowing people. One of those individuals, I won't mention the name, talked about that we deserved the attack on as far as the Beirut bombing that killed over 200 of our Marines. No, I wouldn't let anybody near my platform that makes statements like that. The Iranian, they were behind the attack on the Beirut bombing, which killed over 200 Marines. Talking about that was justified. Let's go back in history, because they always like to bring up the liberty, right? So they can give them basically legitimacy of destroying all of Israel, right? Just destroy all of Israel because of a few bad apples. Remember, they were calling us to basically conduct a ground strike, trying to pressure President Trump into striking Iran and killing about 200 people because Iran shot down an unmanned drone that they claim was in their waters, whatever, and we claim that it was in international waters. Yeah, be it that it was a very expensive drone, but remember all the Boltons and all those people out there taking their own initiative and directing the Pentagon to draw up war plans with Iran. And that, talking about President Trump trying to decapitate the regime of Iran, being behind decapitating a regime of Iran. What? Let me ask those Sherlocks out there, from the intelligentsia. What do you think Deaf to America entails? Are you just plain stupid or something? Okay, I'm gonna try to basically have a calm voice tonight and not raise my voice, but it's kind of hard not to. There was basically two invasions from Russia into Ukraine. They call it, the Russians called it special military operations. Now, I'm not for that either. That we're talking about meet the press, right? Meet the press. The gotcha questions. Lindsey Graham talked about. He talked about it was under basically he said Biden, pretty much. He said Biden and Obama during those two invasions into Ukraine, that was because of Biden and Obama, right? And you see the little moderator, right? Remember those debate moderators? Write something down on her little pad so she could have her little Mockingbird Media script read. Oh, worship and bow down to a Biden. Worship and bow down to a Biden. Oh, that was in the last three instances of this aggression of Russia into Ukraine. That was under President Trump's administration. This people, they're mad. They're mad. Literally mad. Oh, we're going to make concessions? The Russian Ukrainians or those ethnic groups from Russia that lived in Ukraine and eastern Ukraine, they made concessions up to the point where Kiev was actually conducting artillery strikes on their own people. I jotted down a few notes here I'd like to talk about tonight. And Final Countdown, of course, is from Europe, a song from Europe. That's what I'm referencing, but also Mad, Mutually Assured Destruction. We go back to the article again from Air and Space Forces magazine in 2010. It talks about Obama and Hillary Clinton's basically rush to give nukes to NATO. To give nukes to NATO. Remember, that's right around the same time that article came out. That's around the same time of the Russian reset and the uranium transfer to Russia, and the uranium transfer from Russia to where? To Iran, right? I provided all the source references. If you want to see that and go get the source reference and fact check RH, hey, please do. I put them on Truth Social at Area 111 on Truth Social. All the source references for that. and what they did to this country, and basically what they're still doing to this country. I shared information from Event 201 Global Pandemic Exercise based on the new coronavirus that was held in New York, at basically, and sponsored by the World Economic Forum. We talked about this till we're blue in the face about the Great Reset coronavirus from the Klaus Schwab, the WEF guy, right? The day before October 18th of 2019, where they had Event 201, the day before, CNN put out a Moody study from top-level economists titled "Democrats Need to Sharpen Their Attacks on the Trump Economy." If you go watch the Event 201 highlights reel, which I placed on the link on Truth Social at Area 111, you can see how they planned everything. You can see how they were going to deplatform our channels if we basically countered anything that they were doing. Even information that we're trying to share to watch out for certain jabs, whatever. Now, a lot of this has to do with my opinion, and some of it has to do with a professional career in the United States Air Force for over 20 years. 17 years and 10 months of my professional career was overseas. I know how these people tick. I lived with them. I lived amongst them for 17 years and 10 months of my life. And what am I talking about? Setting the precedent. DoD contractors, there was one that worked in my facility where I worked. They joined together and formed a class action lawsuit against the DoD for the compulsory jabs. Through the investigation, through discovery of the plaintiffs, they found out that that certain jab didn't keep them from getting it or spreading it because it was a different form that jab was designed for. It was for the skin virus, right? That basically entered. Okay, I think that's basically, I'm going a little bit far. I'm not a medical doctor. This is information you can look up. Judge Emmett Sullivan, a federal judge, basically ruled that the DoD could not use men and women in uniform as guinea pigs for experimental vaccines. Okay, look it up yourself. That was, of all people, Barack Obama's friend, basically, who attended Harvard University as well. So, without, you could not basically, unless you provided informed consent. Basically, informed consent is, your medical doctor or whatever, the person in your health care field or whatever that you're going to or you're seeing or whatever to get professional advice, they were supposed to provide individuals with informed consent. Okay, this is what could happen to you, whatever. By the way, let's go back. The actual threat of anthrax back during Desert Storm and Desert Shield, was the airborne anthrax threat, the airborne threat that would be delivered through Scuds. Okay, So people can say, "Oh, there was no scud. There was no, they didn't have nothing." You know, I don't want to go down that road with y'all. Any of people like, no, not y'all. I mean, anybody that wants to go down the road and argue with me, tooth and nail. I guess we didn't liberate Kuwait. None of that happened. We just basically we invaded a sovereign country for no reason at all. The Iraqi Kurds, they wasn't conducting genocide on the Iraqi Kurds. None of that stuff happened at all. Just a figment of our imagination. So we just decided to go in there and, you know, bomb Iraq for no motive at all, none whatsoever. I even heard people out there saying, we were the ones that were basically destroying the oil fields in Kuwait. Not Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein didn't move any of his forces into Kuwait at all. That was an unprovoked attack by the United States and the coalition. But the threat was, let's get back to the threat. Get back on the main street here. The threat was the airborne anthrax, not the skin. The skin, basically, when it gets on your skin, I guess. So breathing it in, right? Breathing it in. That was the threat. So I guess, well, I don't guess, the ruling was from Judge Sullivan that, you know, you can't use the military men and women for as guinea pigs for experimental jabs. That was the ruling. There was a stay, whatever. The DOD contractors won their class action lawsuit. Go look it up. I think that was in 2003. You can look it up yourself. Google it. I have no reason to lie about that. I worked actually in an office right across from the Intel section, only 2 doors down from the civilian contractors, one of the civilian contractors that was part of that, part of the class action lawsuit. And I heard the discussions about it. I escalated up the discussions about that. You know, hey, you know, this is whatever. Not even, you know, there was discussions about it. That's all I said. And there was litigation or whatever. They introduced the class action lawsuit. I heard about that. And I escalated that information up to my boss, and you know, and it went from there. But that was back in 2001. 2003, I was already retired from active duty with over 20 years. So they won the lawsuit. So we set the precedent. There should have been, okay, under emergency conditions, I don't know, I'm not the expert. Y'all go find out the information. You can just Google it yourself and find that legitimate source, whatever, that you feel maybe more comfortable listening to. That's fine. Hey, that's the American way. But don't sit there and try to deplatform this channel because I'm warning people about precedents that's already been set. You know, I don't want the government sued. I don't want DOD sued for millions or billions of dollars or whatever either. You know, that's basically, it goes down to the taxpayer making the payments on the lawsuits. You know, so anyways, that new jab came about, and there was not even any paper, right, left intentionally blank. No information at all. I don't want to even go down that road anymore. Because I'm not putting out egregious disinformation to cause harm to anybody. That's a bull-faced lie. So, anyways, it's getting close to Friday, the 15th of August, and we know this meeting is about to occur. Now, I wish when people pop in, they pop right out right away, because there's going to be a lot of information here that you probably haven't heard from anybody else. But anyways, I just hope it gets shared. Again, they've deplatformed this channel multiple times and censored me on all kinds of media platforms, whatever. Back in the day, we're talking about maybe 2.5 years ago, I was having thousands of viewers on a single live stream. So if you come in and go, okay, well, who's this guy? He's only got 2 viewers. The same old story, my friend. It's the same old story. It's the shadow banning and all that stuff to keep me from providing the information for y'all to basically look at, or at least just go research on your own to find the information on your own. And so I'm looking at Rumble here. Says we only have 2 viewers, and one of those viewers is myself, myself, and I. So try to fast forward this. Yeah, this is horrible. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about some things tonight, and I just hope Doug Collins is basically able to do. I think he's performing 2 jobs. I don't know if he's the secretary of the Veterans Affairs Administration, or is he an interim, like a temporary, type of guy there in that position, or he's actually taken over it or not. I think he's President Trump basically nominated or gave him another position until those confirmations take place. And they're still criminally obstructing the president of the United States from his constitutional duties of office by just basically delaying all of the nominations. So he can't have administration. He can't have a full cabinet. He can't have a full administration, whatever, because they're still playing that same old DC two-step, right, game. And so, anyways, it's sickening. It's sickening to watch. The coup is still ongoing, fast and furious. They don't like to talk about the real name, so they'll talk about Stormy Daniels. They won't give the real name. Back then it was Stephanie Clifford. She was wanted to be put on the ballot for a Senate seat in Louisiana. People don't even know about that. She's a basically staunch supporter of Hillary Clinton, and they pulled out this. And the Mockingbird media, you can see the way they operate. They won't tell her expose her real name, so you don't go in there and investigate. Okay, well, who is this person? So you go down and you Google search Stormy Daniels. All you're going to have is the exotic whatever, whatever she was. That's all you'll get, and you won't get the truth. That's the way psychological warfare operation works. That's the way they work. Still ongoing. E. Jean, all that stuff. Oh, it's, what does she say? Sexy. That word, R-A, starts with rap, that's sexy and all that stuff. And they had to, Anderson Cooper, God, the I guy, he had to, we have to go to station break. I mean, it's ridiculous. Ridiculous. The whole thing. And we have to we cannot fail to forget. Remember Christopher Stevens? Oh, wait a minute. Hold on a second. Yeah, that's Benghazi. Um, Hold on a second. I got to get the name. I don't know why that popped up. I might have popped up for a good reason, but that's not what I was going to go into tonight. Of course, it's horrible. I can't forget those that we lost. Tyrone Woods, Christopher Stevens, Glenn Doherty, and Sean Smith. Right? We can't forget those. If I got those names messed up, please put it in the chat or whatever, so I can make the corrections. Man, that was horrible. You know, got Project Gunrunner. Go look that up. That was out there. That was a press conference, I think, put on by the former Secretary, Department of Homeland Security, Janet Napolitano. Basically, and you had Deputy Attorney General Hodgson there, and they talked about how President Obama directed Project Gunrunner and basically funded it with $10 million more. And they all lied about all of that, right? Remember all that? And Eric Holder, the wingman of Obama's, got censored. Remember that? Yeah, remember all those weapons that was walked and basically got in the hands of some very bad people, end up killing at least one person. Uh, Terry was it Terry Willis? I think it was. Got to remember that name. Man, I tell you what, must be directing some energy over here to cause some adverse effects on my memory. Because let's see here. Stand by. I got to get the name. The name I was looking for. Let me see. I want to make sure. I don't want to make another mistake. Stand by. Yeah, the name I was looking for is Christopher Steele. Basically, is born in 1964, so I guess he's around 60 years old now. Yeah, he would be 60 years old. Actually, what, 61, right? June. Turned 61 in June. Yeah, because it's June 24th is already past 2025, so he's 61. But anyways, British former intelligence officer with the Secret Intelligence Service, MI6, from 1987 until his retirement in 2009. He ran the Russia desk at MI6 headquarters in London between 2006 and 2009. In 2009, he co-founded Orbis Business Intelligence, a London-based group, right? Stand by. Let me go in and read a little bit more of this. So why am I even talking about this? Basically, okay, let's go back to Menwith Hill. And men with, it's a compound word, I guess you can call it. Men with Hill. That's in Yorkshire, United Kingdom. It's RAF Men with Hill. Okay, now we're talking MI6, right? He's still active as far as in the intelligence community. You can even say as far as Orbis and maybe a contractor for our own eyes, whatever. So Royal Air Force Men with Hill is a Royal Air Force station near Harrogate, North Yorkshire, England, which provides communications and intelligence support service to the United Kingdom and the United States. Remember whenever President Trump took away the security clearance of John Brennan, and they go, okay, well, he can't go in the facilities anymore, whatever. Remember they came back and said, well, this security clearance wasn't taken away from John Brennan because the Trump administration made administrative errors. So then what happens when that was exposed that the guy was still active? What did he do? Well, he just traveled over to London, right? He traveled over to London. Let's see. The Christopher Steele dossier, right? Remember, they had a Russian too. Where do you think they conjured up a Russian? Come on now. Okay. RAF Men with Hill is a Royal Air Force station near Harrogate, North Yorkshire, England, which provides communications and intelligence support services to the United Kingdom and the United States. The site contains an extensive satellite ground station and is a communications intercept, like intercepting phone calls and private conversations and, satellite communications. Let's go networks, hacking into networks and that kind of thing, and hacking into servers at like at Trump Towers. Let's see, possibly, that kind of thing. Those group of computer scientists, right? They were just curious. They just hacked in, and they found that Alpha Bank connection, which was just an ad, right? Remember that? Remember all that information? And where did John Brennan end up working? Oh, he just went to work in London. Nothing to see there, folks. Who put together the dossier? Where they all knew. See, we all knew it because we were working with them. Our intel guys were working with them. As a, contractor. So when they're not supposed to be doing stuff on our soil or on our territories, right? They just delegate it offshore. This is getting pretty heated over there. They got a new NATO secretary, whatever, kind of toning things down, I guess, a little bit. But this is crazy. So over there on Rumble, I placed I put in, when setting up the live stream, you have to put in a place card holder video. It can't be longer than 2 minutes long. Okay. I got Barack Obama actually on video audio video when he talked about him. We brokered a deal to remove Yanukovych from power, and he had to flee to Russia, basically, because he would have been killed. That was a armed coup, 2014, to overthrow the president of Ukraine that started the uncivil war there to begin with. Man, they really started those artillery strikes on the eastern Ukraine then. They overthrew the president. Obama basically admitted to it, like on, I think it was February 1st of 2015. He was bragging about it to Fareed Zakaria, the CNN guy that was doing the interview with Obama, the same guy that wrote the Post-American World that Obama used to sport around holding in his hand. We got a still shot of that book, and somebody zoomed in on it, and that's what's his favorite reading, the Post-American World. Use your imagination what the Post-American World is referring to. Fundamentally changing, right? Fundamentally changing. This is all gonna basically mesh together, by the way, if you start putting all this stuff together. Even if this message is delivered not in concise order, whatever, chronological order, or whatever type of order, you get this information, you put it together, it gives you a very clear picture of what's been going on. We underwent, we were victims, our country, victims of an invasion for 4 years. There's some estimates that 30 million people crossed those borders. Now, it was not only just an invasion, but a foreign military and terrorist insurgency entering our country. Use your imagination why they want terrorists to come into our country. Foreign adversarial types come into our country. To put together the post-American world, right? So we're going to get together. We're going to put this together. What President Trump's up against. I mean, he had to do a meeting with Putin to stop this madness, right? Before it gets to be really mad. The capital letter MAD, mad, for mutually assured destruction, mad type. So let's go back to Christopher Steele, right? Remember, Brennan basically just traveled over to London to continue working for the ICE and still get paid. He's still out there putting out propaganda to this day, trying to peddle the Russian collusion, interference lie. You know, those people aren't in charge anymore. They don't have a yoke around President Trump's neck, basically going to draw him into World War III and a possible nuclear war and a possible nuclear holocaust. Trump isn't that stupid. And I hope he understands that there's people waiting out there on the sidelines causing all this to happen. These secret societies and all that kind of thing, thinking that, well, We're going to kill two independent sovereign countries with one stone. And then we'll roll in that great reset and the new world government, new world disorder, right? They're going to roll in the new world disorder that Mohamed Morsi was calling, the former president of Egypt was calling for while he was a guest speaker at the Clinton Global Initiative Foundation. Call for it's kind of funny when I search for that now, I can't find it anywhere. I can't find that video. Kind of funny, right? You know, after his campaign pledge, well, let's just say the Egyptian cleric that was speaking, one of the campaign spokespersons for Mohamed Morsi when he's campaigning for president, he basically said that Mohamed Morsi was going to lead a ground invasion into Israel and make Jerusalem the United States global caliphate, United States global Arab caliphate in Jerusalem, not Mecca, not Medina. Wow. Who funded Iran with or at least unlocked the money for $150 billion to go to Iran? Got the intelligentsia out there mad because I even make a statement like that. You know, hey, whatever. And it was what over like $1 billion, $400 million in cash on pallets, and I think it was over $1 billion in other funding that went to Iran as well. Now, I know the hatred for Israel is pretty high from some of these people in this community, and that's their boogeyman, I guess. I mean, hey, they're just fighting for their survival. And let's go back to this. Christopher Steele. Royal Air Force Station near Harrogate, North Yorkshire, England, which provides communications and intelligence support service to the United Kingdom and the United States. The site contains an extensive satellite ground station and is a communications intercept and missile warning site. It has been described as the largest electronic monitoring station in the world. RFA Menwood Hill is owned by the Ministry of Defense, but made available to the U.S. Department of Defense, DoD, under the NATO Status of Forces Agreement 1951 and other undisclosed agreements, classified, between the U.S. and British governments. His Majesty's government is entitled to possession of the site and retains control over its use and its facilities. Through the administration of the base the responsibility of the U.S. authorities, with support provided by around 400 staff of the Government Communications Headquarters, in addition to, that's GCHQ, in addition to United States Air Force and U.S. National Security Agency personnel. In 2014, the number of American personnel was reduced as part of a streamlining of operations due to improvements in technology. And also, Barack Obama basically reorganized the Special Activities Division to that Special Activities Center, right? If you go down and you look at the Special Activities Center or Division, You'll find the Political Action Group. You'll see where all that propaganda basically was initiated covertly by people like John Brennan, who oversaw that operation. That's why he's still out there today. Man, I tell you what, I don't know. I don't know if anything will ever come to the subpoenas, whatever, but in 2014, the number of American personnel was reduced. That was basically streamlined. It was reorganized. Why? To basically help ensure compartmentalized operations, highly compartmentalized operations in dealing with influencing our elections. Okay, they can no longer say they are only working, that the intelligence community is only working overseas, that they're not involved in influencing elections at all. That's a bold-faced lie. They interfere in our elections and elections overseas and including coups to overthrow other world leaders, to include, they were partially responsible for and still responsible through the psychological warfare operations and Mockingbird media propaganda. They're still heavily involved in that operation right now as I speak. They're just smarter the way they conduct their operations, covert operations. That's the reason why they reduce staff, right? And they have special teams working on certain things. You can be working shoulder to shoulder with somebody and not knowing what the other person's mission actually is, or what part of the mission they're was stake in that part of that mission that person right next to you is involved in. So to displace the rumor that the Special Activities Center Political Action Group is not involved in U.S. elections, look what they did to the Hunter Biden laptop. By the way, there's not just one Hunter Biden laptop, there's 3 Hunter Biden laptops. Remember those 51 intelligence sources, higher level, mid-management, higher level management, came out, signed some letter that the Hunter Biden laptop has all the signs of what? Russian disinformation or whatever. Remember, that's example. That's an example just of one of many of how they're directly involved in influencing our elections. You go down to National Redistricting, National Democratic Redistricting Committee. Who do you think is working to help gerrymander all these districts around our country? Man, he's kind of nervous. Who were the founders of, let's say, who utilized ACORN? Who were the founders of Organizing for Action, which basically put at their disposal about a 30,000 ground foot soldier army on the streets of America? Pretty sure they're involved in the summer, fall, winter, spring, and whatever of love operations around our country. Oh, by the way, Marion Bowser came out and said our crime rate is down in Washington, D.C. You know how many people out of, I think it was in 2024, it could be this year, but I was just looking at a chart. There was like about seven nations. We're the top of the chart for, like, I think even Brazil, like entire countries. Washington, D.C. had basically like 41%. Let's see, if there was only 100 people in that neighborhood where 41 people were murdered, the homicide rate, the murder rate of D.C. in 2024, I believe, was 41 people, but that was out of 1,000. So out of 1,000, 41 people were murdered. Is that acceptable to anybody? Oh, our crime rate is down. Why is the crime rate down? Because they're no longer reporting the crime rates properly. Remember, they're starting to put these people out on bond. Remember, even, what's her name? Kamala Harris. She put together a fund to bail out people that broke the law in D.C. Remember that? So if you don't even go to prison, I guess you're not going to be part of the statistics, are you? Yeah, we're going to talk about Marion Bowser and the what we believe people, right? That she supported. What we believe, right? So, okay. Let's go back and read this again. Remember, MI6, Christopher Steele, the operations to overthrow our duly elected president, entailed foreign operatives to include intelligence operatives working who? Who runs it? Should we go back again and read this statement? It is a Royal Air Force station near Harrogate, North Yorkshire, England, which provides communications and intelligence support services to the United Kingdom and the United States. The site contains an extensive satellite ground station and is a communications intercept and missile warning site. It has been described as the largest electronic monitoring station in the world. Monitoring, what are we talking about? Surveillance, right? Digital, audio, all of it. RFA Menwith Hill is owned by the Ministry of Defense, but made available to the U.S. Department of Defense under the NATO Status of Forces Agreement 1951 and other undisclosed agreements between the U.S. and British governments. His Majesty's government is entitled to possession of the site and retains control over its use and its facilities, though the administration of the base is responsible to U.S. authorities with support provided by around 400 staff from government communications headquarters, in addition to the United States Air Force and U.S. National Security Agency personnel. Okay, 2014, the number of American personnel was reduced as part of the streamlining of operations due to improvements in technology. And that can help ensure against loose lips, sink ships. What did the Biden administration do or carry out in 2014? 2014 is when they overthrew Yanukovych in Ukraine, the duly elected president by the Ukrainians, Yanukovych. And again, I shared the place card holder video of Barack Obama going out there bragging about overthrowing or being part of brokering the deal. That's how he called it. He called a coup a deal, a broker deal. It's a deal. It's a matter, right? It's just a matter. Nothing to see there, folks, at all. So Yanukovych, what they didn't like is he had a peace treaty with Russia. And and they had a land lease deal, which is supposed to go out to 2042, right? Which they didn't like. So they overthrew the president because he had a peace treaty with Russia. Remember, they overthrew Hosni Mubarak in Egypt. Why? Because he had a peace treaty with Israel. They tried Obama's entire campaign team pretty much flew to Israel to do what? To try to overthrow Benjamin Netanyahu, whether you like him or not. The site acts as a ground station for a number of satellites operated by the U.S. National Reconnaissance Office on behalf of the NSA. They're one of those 17 intelligence affiliated organizations, right? On behalf of the NSA, with antennas contained in numerous distinctive white radomes, locally referred to as the golf balls, and is alleged to be an element of Echelon. That's not an alleged. Echelon is real. So if you go to Special Activities Center, go down there. You can read it for yourself. The Wikipedia link, right? The information. There's source references. You can go in there. You can click even on the source reference of Echelon, and it's not a proposed system, alleged, whatever. It's real. Of course, they're not going to publicly disclose their operations because that's classified. That's one of the things Snowden, Edward Snowden, I believe his name is, he basically leaked and he got in trouble. Well, you know, if you abuse that system, whatever, and you're interfering in our elections, right, to include infrastructure, I think y'all know what I mean when I talk about infrastructure. You bring in teams or you operate offshore, wherever you're operating from. Operating in Siberia, I mean, where's Siberia at? Do you seriously believe with Trump's campaign promises that Europe wanted Trump to be reelected? Do you seriously believe that Europe wanted Trump to be elected to begin with? In 2016? You seriously believe that? After all of President Trump's campaign promises, they knew exactly what he was going to do. That's why he had all that obstruction. We're talking even from our own government. These rogue groups in our government basically blocking the president from even trying to secure the border. They refused to even fund it. Remember? So they did all that. So you can't tell us that they wasn't behind, complicit in all these fentanyl deaths alone. Just the fentanyl deaths alone. Hundreds of thousands of people died. Just the fentanyl alone. Well, there wasn't that many people already that died of fentanyl. That's a conspiracy theory. Okay. 1,000. Can you agree with 1,000? If you're facilitating and directing an invasion and you know that leads to the deaths of hundreds of thousands of Americans or thousands, whatever, you're part of it. You own it. Because you blocked even President Trump, even in his first term, even Nancy Pelosi, and as Rush Limbaugh would say, Chuck, you know what, Schumer? They went in the White House and sitting there trying to argue with the President of the United States, saying that border wall don't work. Border wall don't work. They're a vital deterrent for our national security. It gives our Border Patrol agents, and this is common sense, I shouldn't even have to repeat this 1,000 times either. It gives them time to basically, the deterrent. You're not going to just zip over that wall in like a minute. And we got some things that we can root out those tunnels too, and basically destroy them. We have that, right? So, wow, 0 people now on YouTube, 0. That's how many people is listening. Do I have to refresh? Let me try to refresh. There's only one other person here live on Rumble listening to the live stream. Oh, by the way, we purchased Alaska from Russia for $7 million. It belongs to the United States of America. Trump isn't giving it back. Russia ain't going to take it, right? Let's see here. Yeah, nobody's watching at all. So I want to basically talk about remote viewers on. Okay, I didn't see your remote. Tanya, good to see you. Hopefully everybody's here. I wasn't watching YouTube. Sorry, I was watching Rumble a lot. I hope we have people in listening that I shared the link to. I really do, because there's a lot of information I talk about that is not talked about at all. So we have to understand what started this war, and let me talk about the real quick before I forget. Let's talk about what Giant Voice refers to. Giant Voice Systems, right? It's called ATI Systems, Acoustic Technology Inc., right? So ATI's military installation notification and warning systems are UFC 04-21-01 compliant to keep bases in a state of readiness for any scenario. So Giant Voice is pretty much, from my understanding, when facing threats, communication is critical in saving lives and minimizing injuries. ATI's powerful, reliable, and robust Giant Voice systems have been deployed by military facilities around the world to provide essential alert warning capabilities for emergency preparedness and planning. So basically, a part or segment of the Giant Voice system is they can go out in open, in clear, without having to use all these encrypted communications, because if there's an immediate threat to that facility or facilities in the region or wherever those facilities are, we needed a communication system that would go out in the clear, where you didn't have to take time and fumble for decryption devices or encryption devices or whatever, right? So it goes out in the clear to basically say, take cover, take shelter, right? Incoming attack, whatever. and gives time to people to basically get to a safe place, right, and take cover. Okay, that's basically what it is. So in this is kind of like uh, this is what we're seeing in Europe right now is these people aren't going to let go of this. Now I know President Trump put out this thing where we're going to send weapons to Europe, and they can basically they're the ones that Europe's going to have to pay for it, or NATO's going to have to pay for the weapons, right? We're not going to support their war anymore. Basically, that's what it's saying. You know, we're not withdrawing with our tail between the legs or anything like that, right? It's just the fact that it's a territorial dispute, right? And we should be involved in that. Now, they should work this out where they stopped and held people accountable for human rights violations in 2014 after the overthrow of Yanukovych, and they started shelling eastern Ukraine, killing their own people. Could you imagine if DC or our capital or our government ordered shelling of Mexican Americans living on the border of Mexico? Could you imagine that? Killing people, shelling civilian neighborhoods? That's actually what was going on there, right? So, yeah, the Great Reset didn't work. Yeah, but see, the thing of it is, we people in our community, man, we are informed about all the stuff that they did, right? Yeah. Let me go back and see if that was shared on the. Let me go ahead and share the comments. Apologize for that. I'm kind of rusty. I've been took a couple weeks break, whatever. Yeah, they can. They've shadow banned this channel. I mean, I tell you, really, they took a lot of the followers off this channel when they deplatformed me off of YouTube. I was only doing live streams at first on YouTube only, right? And I was going, I had tact, I mean, I was tact, whatever you call it. I mean, I didn't go out there and was just crazy, putting out this stuff. I understand. But anyways, I sure as heck could never basically claim to or ever put out, or what do you call that? Medical advice. You know, I've been around. I don't want to kind of like embarrassed to say how old I am, but I know there's a lot of people in this community there because I look at the what do you call the information, the specs, whatever on the live streams that I did do, but I have conducted. But anyways, yeah, I've been around going on 6.5 decades. You know, so I've learned to experience through my own life experiences. I know what works for me, and hey, if I have something that works great for me, it could work great for somebody else too. Even if I'm just talking about maybe eating blueberries and whatever, and what do you call it? Greek raw Greek yogurt, whatever. I mean, I mean, it's so crazy that these people have gotten where they can think they can. These control freaks, they can control every damn thing we say. And majority of these people that are censoring us, right, or have deplatformed us, they have no idea what they're claiming that they're deplatforming us for. They just don't like what we have to say, whatever. But anyways, yeah, you think about this. I guess pretty much the biggest thorns in their side would be the United States of America. Well, I didn't know it could help you sleep, but yeah, maybe that, I don't know. Maybe I should try that too. I cut way back on my caffeine, by the way, and I just slept during the daytime, and it's normally very hard for me to go to sleep at night. It started out in basic training, you know, and RTI and the Air Force, they call it. They're not called drill instructors in the Air Force. They're called training instructors, TI, right? I'll never forget his name, Tech Sergeant Bryant. But no, the first couple days we were there, sleeping in our little our beds there. They're like a cot, with springs on a little mattress about, I don't know, about maybe 5 or 6 inches thick. But anyway, we had a foot locker and all this stuff. But when our TI wanted us to wake up, it wasn't a very nice experience. He didn't come over there and touch little RH on the shoulder and shake his shoulder. It's time to get up now, RH. It's time to get up now. We got work to do. Come on, RH. Can you give me 15 more minutes? Can I hit the snooze button? We didn't have a snooze button, What he'd do, he'd throw one of those big old metal trash cans down the center of the aisle. Bam, bam, smashing up against the metal cot poles, whatever, hitting the wall, bam. That's how we woke up. And when you woke up, you didn't go, oh, I'm so tired, I'm going to go back and lay down for another couple hours. So, based on that and coffee and a lot of caffeine, I had what you call insomnia. So, any little thing pretty much wakes me up. You know what I mean? Anything. You have somebody racing a car down the street, try to swerve around speed bumps and everything, revving their engines, doing burnouts, and having parties till like 2 or 3, 4 in the morning. The fiestas, you know what I mean? Partying, they got through. The party's all around here. And once I'm up. And it's very hard for me to go back to sleep. So I cut way back on caffeine. Now, this isn't medical advice. This is personal experience. So you little brown shirts out there, calm down now. Calm down. Who's he? He's only got one person watching his live stream. You know what I mean? So, yeah. It's going back to Little Barry. Little Barry. I'm a senior to Barry. He's a farmer, remember? I'm a farmer. I used to play baseball. I was a former baseball player. I was a practicing baseball player. I actually went out there and played baseball games, various positions, even first base, right field, left field, center field. They tried me on second base. It didn't work out too good. But I was kind of like sidearm. So, when the guy's trying to get to second and I throw the ball to first to try to get a double play, it don't work out too good for the runner. But anyways, no, I mean, it's really dangerous when you're throwing a ball that fast and trying to get a double play. You know, the guy's running right at you, and you're throwing sidearm. You know, it's I seen a guy get hit by a softball. You know, intramural sports and as far as the Air Force. He was running a second base, man. He got hit right in the jaw with a softball. It knocked him out completely. It broke his jaw too, actually. That was really nasty injury. But that's no, I didn't need to be. I didn't need to be on second base. Oh, uh, so you go to Meet the Press and you look at the little interview that she had with the Mockingbird Media type had with Senator Lindsey Graham from South Carolina. In the capital of South Carolina is in Columbia there. But I have a little bit experience about that area, I should say. Anyways, I'm gonna I'll just leave out my own little remarks there on that. But anyways, and the love bugs and that kind of thing. You know, the dark web stuff. But let's see. Yeah, the little Mockingbird Media propaganda queen. You can see. Go check out that Meet the Press interview with Lindsey Graham. It's on YouTube, and you'll see that map I'm talking about. Okay, but anyways, this is the territory. This map you see on the avatar photograph is basically the positions of Russia now. And I think this is kind of looking at this map, and there's remember the Kerch Bridge they bombed? I'm trying to remember. Say they're basically, this map is showing the orange is Russian Federation, right? Russian territory, and the red is supposedly the position of Russian Federation forces and other forces, by the way, not just Russian. From Kharkiv. Now, no, Kharkiv is not one of those areas. There's little bits of red you'll see on that map up there by Luhansk. But anyways, if you see the Luhansk you're talking about, let's talk about Donbass, that area in what used to be eastern Ukraine. They all voted to leave Ukraine and join the Russian Federation. They all voted for that. It went through the Russian whatever parliament, and they constitutionally approved their independence, whatever. So, and they asked for protection from Russia because Kiev, you'll see Kiev, KY. IV. Let me see. Come on. This thing is messing up on me. KYIV. I call it Kiev. KIEV. But anyways, you got they're basically saying Lindsey Graham said that they're going to have to make concessions as far as the land goes, right? But what he did say is what I didn't like is he said that for security, once this deal is reached, they're asking for security guarantees for Ukraine that Russia would not go into Ukraine again, right? Invade Ukraine again, the third time. So, anyways, uh, they wanted security guarantees, and part of the security guarantees would entail troops on the ground with European forces in Ukraine. Now, they're also calling for putting. Some people are calling to put to allow Ukraine to join NATO. I want to say this, and a lot of people may not like it. Listen, my heart goes and my prayers goes out to all the people that lost loved ones in Ukraine in this needless war. But I have to remind people, it's kind of funny why they just totally dismiss that the West, right, was responsible for, let's just say the West, okay? Not the West in entirety, let's just say the West was responsible for overthrowing the president of Ukraine that started the uncivil war to begin with. Then they began shelling their own people. You see Luhansk. Well, let's talk about the Donbass area. You can go to another map, but that's supposedly that region is what Russia took over. Okay. But in eastern Ukraine, Kiev, the government of Kiev was shelling their own people. Basically, Lindsey Graham said that that Ukraine is not going to be able to evict every single Russian inside of Ukraine. Because there's too many of them. Okay, Crimea also voted to be independent to join the Russian Federation, but have their independence as well, working with the Russian Federation. But I like to point out, whether we like this or not, Crimea has been part of Russia, especially you go down to Sevastopol. That's where Russia's had their Black Sea Fleet for over 200 years. They've had physical possession of Crimea, the peninsula of Crimea, for over 200 years. So the West can claim that that territory belongs to Ukraine all they want to. But history basically has other facts that we should pay attention to if we're going to try to stop this war. I mean, you think about it. Even during World War II, Nazi Germany took over that Black Sea Fleet port of Russia's in Crimea, right? Then they took over Crimea, the peninsula of Crimea. And it was the Allies, to include the United States, that helped Russia get their territory back, part of their territory back. Okay? So whether we like that statement or not, that's a proven fact. People can go. You can also go back to the Ottoman Turkish wars, and some of these people are saying that Russia lost. Go back to Catherine the Great. Go back, check that out. You know, Catherine the Great. Look at the history. That's a Russian Christian Empress, Catherine the Great. You know, if it probably wasn't for Russia, whether I like it, that statement or not, I really don't like to even make the statement. All of Europe all of Christendom would have fell. You go back to the Armenian genocide, and it's really great that President Trump got peace between Azerbaijan and Armenia, right? That's a great accomplishment for President Trump, and I hope that the talks of them joining NATO, I hope that's not true. I mean, so what Lindsey Graham talked about as far as President Trump negotiating a ceasefire and a peace treaty. Uh, he he talks about security guarantees with European forces on the ground. Now, I hope that doesn't mean. I hope that doesn't mean NATO, because that's a no go for Russia already, right there. And I want this war to end. I want the deaths, the needless deaths of the Ukrainians and Russians that are just basically victims of circumstance. I don't want any innocent people to die, especially in a needless war. So, anyways, what did Lindsey Graham? One of the security guarantees with European forces on the ground as tripwires, or trip mines, right? So you're going to use the NATO NATO troops on the ground or Europeans for basically war bait. War bait. I hope you investigate really good. If any of these European forces die for whatever reason, I hope you investigate those deaths and not say Russia, Russia, Russia right off the bat, right? They did a lot of that in eastern Ukraine whenever they're shelling. Kiev was shelling their own people in eastern Ukraine, or the uh, the Russian ethnic groups that live there, right? So, anyways, and they want a self-governing Ukraine, right? You want a self-governing Ukraine like the overthrow of Yanukovych. You know, when you make allies with other countries, especially if they're your border, they they're basically right on your border, like we have with Canada and we have with Mexico. You know, you have to have some arrangements that other countries are not going to like. You don't go in there and you try to, well, not try to overthrow the president. You don't go in there and you overthrow the government because you don't like the deals that they made with another country that borders their country. That Ukraine was a member of the Soviet Union. Basically, who gave Ukraine independence? Who gave Ukraine independence? That would be Nikita Khrushchev. He helped secure the independence of Ukrainians. Right? They didn't put together that deal to basically have NATO forces surround all of Russia, whether you think that's a good idea or not. If they were really hostile to the United States, I would say that would be, uh, you know, yeah, a requirement. So I love all these people that are all knowing, right? Oh, oh, you got some real estate, some dumb ogre trying to put together the deal, right? And how intelligent they are. How intelligent they are. I guess it pays pretty good to be a Trump hater, right? To work for the Mockingbird Media, right? To read those scripts. I guess the pay's great, isn't it? You have no, you have no confidence in President Trump's abilities to negotiate a deal whatsoever, huh? No confidence. He's insecure when the cameras go off of him, right? He's insecure. Now we're talking about a billionaire, a guy that's made deals all his life. He's insecure with Vladimir Putin. He's going to be insecure, and and they're gonna calm him down. Say it's okay, Donnie. Everything's going to be all right. Just bend over this table right here, Donnie, and everything will be just fine. You're going to concede what? Well, what do you want me to concede, Vlad? There's going to be some concessions. Now, it's kind of funny, this map here, it shows Crimea, that Russia basically took over their own naval base in Crimea, right? Sevastopol. That's all red. That's territories that Russia stole from Ukraine. Let's go back to this Nikita Khrushchev deal. How many people even know that Khrushchev was born in Ukraine? Here we go into the wild blue yonder. Da, 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 da. Yeah, Nikita Khrushchev, 30-year anniversary of Nikita Khrushchev's death was September 11th, 2001. Passed away on September 11th of 1971. And before that, he got Ukraine's independence. A Ukrainian himself. A Ukrainian himself. And remember the Cuban Missile Crisis, how close the world came, and how they called President Kennedy? It's almost the same replay. But instead of Kennedy and Khrushchev, it's President Trump and Putin, right? The West is trying to put us into that scenario where they're just going to sit back, right, and watch two birds killed with one stone, and then the Great Reset's going to appear. We're going to have it now. There's going to be an expansion of a kingdom too, right? Remember, there used to be the kingdom of Israel, joint kingdom, Israel, Judah. Remember that? The joint kingdom? Palestine, Palestine, Palestine. No, that was Philistines. Philistines. Philistine. 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 Not Palestine. There was never a Palestine. That's the wannabe part of the new territory of who? The kingdom. Who put the Muslim Brotherhood back in power in Egypt? Who founded Hamas and Hezbollah? Right. No, let me back up. Who founded Hamas? Should I play the video of the Egyptian cleric basically stating that Mohammed Morsi was going to lead a ground invasion into Israel and make Jerusalem the United States global Arab caliphate. The United States global Arab caliphate in Jerusalem, not Mecca or not Medina, in Jerusalem. That was Mohammed Morsi's, that's what he ran on. That's in part how he got elected. He worked directly with Hamas. He worked directly with Hamas in his contacts with Hamas and Iran to break him out of a prison cell in Cairo, Egypt. Remember, in 2009, Barack Obama traveled to Cairo, Egypt to basically on his apology tour, and basically his edict, he ordered the Egyptian government to put basically the Muslim Brotherhood on the front row seats for his speech. Remember, I think he said in that speech, I think that was the speech where he said, we're not Christians. We're not a Christian nation. I understand the rest of it, but the fact he said that, we should take note of that. Let's go back to this we don't even realize that they've already made war with us, whether we believe it or not, whether we want to be in war or not. I want to bring up this real quick. I'm going to go to Black Lives Matter and the nuclear family. Okay, there's a bunch of articles out there, and I actually, before they took it down, What We Believe, the Black Lives Matter website, basically go to that website, it has a link to give donations to Act Blue. Remember that? We exposed all that. We disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure. We disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure requirement by supporting each other as extended families and the villages that collectively care for one another, especially our children, to the degree that mothers, parents, and children are comfortable. Okay? Remember, when I looked at it before they removed that What We Believe page or took that off, where they're going to basically destroy the Western nuclear cell of a family. Basically, the founders are actually Marxist communists, and so they want to destroy the Western nuclear cell. Okay, they want to disrupt it, right? So they flood the zone with the word disrupt. They want to make everybody, oh, like that's better, right? We want to disrupt the Western nuclear cell of a family. Disrupt it, cause chaos, right? Well, when you abort something, right? That's a pretty big disruption, right? When you abort the Western nuclear cell of the family, right? Or you at least cause chaos, is that good? You think that's good, right? No, I don't think it's good at all. Let's go back to something else. And the reason why I'm talking about this, to understand the background of this and the reason why they overthrew the president of Ukraine, the reason why they want to go to war with Russia. Remember the Sochi Olympics? Remember the Sochi Olympics? This is BBC News. Man, they really love this one. Sochi Olympics, gay athletes to join U.S. delegation. Don't you think that would disrupt the Western nuclear cell of a family? You're talking about the mothers and fathers and their children? The U.S. is sending the Biden administration is sending 2 openly gay sports stars to the Winter Olympics in Sochi as part of its official delegation. Right? The move is being seen as a challenge to new laws in Russia which ban propaganda about homosexuality. What were they calling for? What was Zelensky calling for? Remember the guy dancing in high heels and stilettos and those leotards or whatever you call them? Remember that guy? Remember the guy that played as an actually actor in Ukraine? He was playing a part in a TV series of the president of Ukraine. And why do you think they chose this guy? What do you think the main reason why they chose this guy? The move is being seen as a challenge to new laws in Russia which ban propaganda. They got that in quotes about homosexuality. Tennis legend Billie Jean King and ice hockey player Caitlin Cahow, Cahow, will represent the U.S. at the opening and closing ceremonies and other events. President Barack Obama, who is not going, said the delegation represents the diversity of the U.S. So they dishonored our country for the Olympics. The Olympics isn't a social experiment either, right? So they tried to influence the Olympics. They tried to influence the Western nuclear cell of the family. Wouldn't you call that a disruption? I would. Activists have urged world leaders to boycott the Sochi Games over human rights concerns, despite assurances by Russian President Vladimir Putin that gay athletes will not be discriminated against. They're there for the Olympics. They're there to be athletes in the Olympics, not to promote what they do behind closed doors in the privacy of their own family or their own home between 2 consensual adults. That president over there said, we won't discriminate against them. They're supposed to be here competing in the Olympics, not forcing your Marxist. Well, actually, never mind. But the Russian law, which bans the promotion of non-traditional sexual relations, what? I did not have sexual relations with that woman. Non-traditional sexual relations has raised questions about what could happen to athletes who wear pins or badges or carry flags supporting gay rights. That's not what they're there for. They're there to compete as athletes, not dishonor our country and our flag. United said in a statement that Mr. Obama was extremely proud of our U.S. athletes and looks forward to cheering them on from Washington. I guess he didn't say. He said athletes. He wasn't being specific about the athletes, right? He knows they will showcase to the world the best of America: diversity, determination, and teamwork. He did that in our military too, right? He fundamentally changed their military as well, didn't he? Look what happened to the recruitment. Bill Clinton basically joined them, I guess, as well, right? Bill Clinton went with them. Remember, they had Billie Jean King go. King said she was honored to have been named. I am equally proud to stand with the members of the LGBT, lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender community in support of all athletes who will be competing in Sochi. And I hope these Olympic Games will indeed be a watershed moment for the universal acceptance of all people, she said. Caitlin Cahow, who won medals at the 2006 and 2010 Winter Olympics, told the American newspaper USA Today that a statement was being made in the composition of the delegation, but that it was an incredible, respectful one. Basically, the White House is highlighting Americans who know what it means to have freedoms and liberties under the Constitution. Human rights groups have also welcomed the decision. Human rights groups. The U.S. delegation includes former Homeland Security Secretary Janet Napolitano, U.S. Ambassador to Russia Michael McFaul, figure skater Brian Boitano, and presidential advisor Rob Neighbors. I thought Bill Clinton went. I guess he did. I don't know. And so to appease these people, they had a kind of like a risque video going on, if I remember correctly. And to show them, boy, they made sure they bombed the city of Sochi, didn't they? They bombed the city of Sochi, the Ukrainians. The West bombed the city of Sochi, where they had the Sochi Olympics. So let's go back and read this again. why we should abolish the family. Remember, to destroy the Western nuclear cell of the family. This is an article you can read yourself from Current Affairs, a magazine of politics and culture. Okay? Filed as September 2022 in Socialism. Okay? Why we should abolish the family. The family is a conservative project that limits human flourishing. The family must be abolished. This is from Lily Sanchez, right? The principle underlining capitalistic society and the principle of love are incompatible. What? Are incompatible. Incompatible. The principle underlining capitalistic society and the principle of love are incompatible. Remember what they're talking about. Why we should abolish the family. That's the Western nuclear cell of the family. This is socialist, communist, Marxist teachings right here. My sister and I grew up in the shadows of our parents' divorce. The failure of that marriage and the resulting financial impact was our life's lesson. We understood that we come from a broken family. The message was clear. Don't let divorce happen to you. We came of age in the 80s and 90s. Nancy Reagan's just say no to drugs and family values rhetoric. Bill Clinton's welfare reform and the defense of marriage. Clinton, end of welfare as we know it, promoted work and marriage as a solution to poverty. As Sarah Jaffe has noted, the preamble of 1996 law included marriage is the foundation of a successful society. The Defense of Marriage Act defined the institution of marriages as a union between a man and a woman and allowed states not to recognize same-sex marriages. You don't recognize something that can't even be consummated, right? You cannot consummate. How can you get married? You know what marriage means, right? You know, you dock like the space shuttle docks with the space station or whatever, right? Something to that effect. You know, you docking, right? You know, in the state of Florida, there's a law that if you can't consummate a marriage, you can annul it. You can annul it. You know what it is? To be basically, when you get married, that's a spiritual, basically, that's between us and God when we get married in a church, right? And then what's normally conducted as custom on the marriage night, right? Or I guess you could say on your honeymoon, maybe too, on your marriage night. What happens? You normally consummate the marriage. There's celebrations after the consummation in many other countries. They celebrate it. The act after the marriage of consummating to making it a legitimate marriage. If you can't consummate, that's a way, by law in the state of Florida, you can actually get divorced and have a not divorced, an annulment. What does an annulment do? Whether we like it or not, annulment is like it never existed. So we're supposed to go around and pretend that people can get married, that certain sect of people can get married They can't even consummate. And then, I hear all the other, what if two people really love each other that are old and they can't consummate anymore? You get the stupid arguments like that, right? What is the title of this article? And I'm pretty sure I don't think it said disrupt. When I went down and I read before they removed that from what we believe, that was their manifesto, Black Lives Manifesto, what we believe. I didn't remember disrupt the Western nuclear cell of the family. I read it to believe that they wanted to destroy the Western nuclear cell of the family. And this is the article that backs it up. Why we should abolish the family. Abolish the family. I think that a revolution, a socialist revolution, will break down the family structure how we know it now. The woman being freed from her menial position, either as the lowest paid worker or as house slave, will be out of the home more. The concept of marriage will change because marriage right now is a kind of slave contract. What? Probably in the future, marriage itself as a contract will not exist. People will have the freedom to relate to each other as humans, to enjoy each other intellectually, sexually, and whatever else. I don't see where there are any great advantages to the nuclear family at this point. Okay. Let's go in real quick and read. Let's go back and read the statements of let me see. No, I'm not gonna pay for this one-time article. Is Socialist Communist Manifesto. It basically is very important for us to understand that. Golly, this is ridiculous. So, man, they block all of this right here, right? Because you know why they're blocking this information, this article? Okay, I have to keep going. They put where I have to sign no regrets for a love of explosives in a memoir of sorts, a war protester, right? Go check this out. Okay. He was basically, if you go in and read it, it's the same manifesto that Obama basically subscribed to. If you go read his manifesto and look at how he's basically going to destroy the Western nuclear cell of the family. He actually talked about him having sex with his male friend and I guess his wife having sex with another person too. I don't know, but if you go down and you read that manifesto, it's very clear. They're all connected to the destruction of the Western nuclear cell of a family, right? So how do you think that's going to work in a Western nuclear cell of a family of our dads and our moms, right? And basically having your dad having sex with another man. How do you think that's going to work out? Don't you think it's going to cause a disruption, at least at minimum, or disruption or destruction? I would call that destruction. Yeah, I'm not going to go in. I'm not casting stones. Believe me, I'm not perfect, but I've been married multiple times, but there's not one time I got in a marriage, basically got married to say, okay, well, I know I'm going to get divorced in this marriage. So, but, who does that? Do you think I got into my marriage, I got married and, 3 times and to basically go, well, I'm probably going to get divorced in a year or two, and let me just get married so I can get divorced. Obviously not. My heart goes out to everyone that's had to have, or at least they got a divorce. They may not have had to have a divorce, but I don't wish that on my worst enemy. I don't think I even got any enemies, but I'm not a threat to them because look what all they did. I've gone from thousands of viewers of a single live stream or live streams to one person here. One person. So here I can find it. This is from the Free Republic. Now, no regrets for a love of explosives. Obama friend, William Ayers. 9/11. This is the point I like to make. This manifesto was released by the New York Times on September 11, 2001. That's why I believe they'll start blocking that from us reading. You have to sign in and join the New York Times before you can read the article. It minimized views. That's what they want to do now because we figured this all stuff. What did the Weather Underground, remember their flag? Remember it? It was the rainbow. That was an offshoot of all these radical Marxist, socialist, communist organizations trying to basically destroy our country and remake it in their image and their likeness, right? So Bill Ayers, the mentor of Barack Obama, and if you read through this article, again, this is from the Free Republic. No regrets for a love of explosives memoir of sorts. Posted on August 23rd of 2008. In a memoir of sorts, a war protester talks of life with a weatherman. I don't regret setting bombs, Bill Ayers said. I feel we didn't do enough. Right. And who set bombs? Who's the pipe bomber? Still don't know that, right? They're still covering that up, right? Mr. Ayers, who spent the 1970s as a fugitive in the Weather Underground, was sitting in the kitchen of his big turn of the 19th century stone house in Hyde Park district of Chicago. The long curly locks in his wanted poster are shorn through though he wears earrings. He still has tattooed on his neck the rainbow and lightning weatherman. Remember? Yeshua saw Satan coming in lightning, right? Satan came in lightning. That's their boss. Don't you think Satan wants death and destruction? The destroyer, the son of perdition, right? September 11th. That's why they fight and say, well, there was no bombing that occurred on 9/11. Trade Tower 7 came down on its own footprint in free fall, right? It was basically damaged by flying debris that caused office fires, and basically the office fires caused structural integrity problems, and it just collapsed in of its own footprint on September 11th, 2001. No regrets for a love of explosives. You know, and he still has that ebullient, ingratiating manner, the apparently intense interest in other people that made him a charismatic figure in the radical student movement. Now he has written a book, Fugitive Days. Mr. Ayers, who is 56, calls it a memoir, somewhat coyly, perhaps, since he also says some of it is. You have to go in and actually read the whole article, the New York Times article. This is just the excerpts. He writes that he participated in the bombings of the New York City Police Headquarters in 1970, of the Capitol Building in 1971, the Pentagon in 1972. Let me see if they got the source reference to this. Excuse me. Jeez. Yeah, they blocked me from reading this again. So, man, you have to go in and read it, because this is all connected. Once you read that Communist Manifesto that Bill Ayers had scheduled to release on September 11th, 2001, before September 11th, 2001, remember, that New York Times newspaper was already out there at dark 30 before the first plane hit the tower. Okay? Before the first explosions began going off. Reported by first responders and others. Very important to read this article. The full article. So, anyways, working with some pretty radical people, right? You just got to go read that Communist Manifesto of Bill Ayers. No regrets for a love of explosives. in a memoir of sorts. That's the New York Times. Again, that was published. It's still in the archives, September 11th, 2001. Now you have to sign up to actually read the article. It all ties in together. Look at our country now with the invasion that occurred. Don't you think that invasion has been disrupted a lot of families that they brought into our country? A lot of families, right? They disrupted or destroyed in their invasion for their own personal interests. So I hope President Trump is wise in his meeting with Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, on Friday. And basically, I hope the security is sufficient enough, more than sufficient enough, extra security. Because remember, they've tried to murder President Trump multiple times. And I do believe it's a lot more than what we believe, more times than we understand. I do believe they also tried to inflict him, or they did inflict him, with a biological weapon. A virus that was basically, they conducted gain of function on it, right? They used a lot of different types of sources, I won't say, as far as to derive at those biological weapons. So that's what I believe, and I believe they have an antidote for it. Remember, they had to medically evacuate President Trump on Marine One to U.S. Army Hospital Walter Reed. He nearly died in that hospital based on, as far as my opinion, based on his face. Looked as white as a sheet of paper on one of the photographs I observed. And basically, what did they give him when he first got there? Remdesivir, right? I mean, that if I was in an official position that I could basically start criminal investigations, that's one of the investigations. When did they decide, or who decided to basically use a antivenom or Regeneron? I should say, okay, Dr. Ardis is basically the one, I believe they called that in those terms. But why did they give him remdesivir? I guess. Never mind. There's a lot of questions. And then you got Ryan Ruth, tried to set up to murder our president, right? He's supposedly set up for 12 hours, 11 hours in that position. Guy deeply involved with Ukraine, deeply involved with members of Congress, deeply involved in procuring or soliciting to procure weapons, to include weapons that anti-aircraft weapons. Who was he working with? Why are they holding that back from the public still? Okay. And that guy, Crooks. Still no information on that either. I'm sure they didn't not only have that in those burn bags, but they actually threw those bags in a burn barrel and made sure all that stuff was cremated, if you will, where you can't even provide autopsies anymore or anything, right? Okay, so reminds me of Hart Island, right? New York, Hart Island. Okay, so I pretty much shared the information I wanted to share. Now we've watched the invasions not only in the United States but in countries in Europe. This jointly conducted. These are joint criminal conspiracies to basically destroy the sovereignty of our countries. And that's why I guess because Russia, they can't basically do that because it's against their laws, and they pretty much secure their borders pretty good. Uh, you know, I guess that's why they want the war. Okay, so with that said, I hope we have to pray for our president because of all this evil out there. These, you know, the darts of the wicked, right? Is that what it's called? Let me go back to Ephesians real quick. Put on the whole armor of God that we may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Wherefore take unto you the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all to stand. Stand therefore, having your loins girt about with truth, and having on the breastplate of righteousness, and your feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace. Above all, taking the shield of faith, wherewith ye shall be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked, and take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. That's Ephesians chapter 6, verse 11, verse 17. Put on the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Wherefore take unto you the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all to stand. Stand therefore, having your loins girt about with truth, and having on the breastplate of righteousness, and your feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace. Above all, taking the shield of faith, wherewith ye shall be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked, and take the helmet of salvation, and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 11 through 17. That's from the KJV. Okay, so I really believe in the power of prayer. So this is from the Western Journal, real quick. BLM propaganda unveiled at schools across America. Elementary kids to dismantle nuclear family. That's the commentary. Your kindergarten might, okay, it says Black History Month. Your kindergartner might be getting handed woke worksheets about disrupting the Western prescribed nuclear family structure. Yes, in some classrooms, things are a bit different than the old days when we learned about the civil rights movement, Martin Luther King or Malcolm X. Now kids from coast to coast will be taking part in the Black Lives Matter at School Week of Action, which teaches kids from kindergarten to high school from the 13 guiding principles of the BLM movement. Despite the fact the phrase Black Lives Matters has vague connotations and general acceptance, the Black Lives Matter activist framework is a different thing entirely. This is something we've noted frequently here at the Western Journal, and will continue to bring readers the truth about the Black Lives Matter movement. You can help us by subscribing, okay? The activist framework is based around 13 guiding principles, many of which are openly Marxist in origin. Some are just activist buzzwords: diversity, empathy, globalism. Others are more divisive in nature: queer affirming, trans affirming, restorative justice. And then there's the most problematic, number 11, Black villages. Sounds harmless. Remember when Trump was roasting Hillary Clinton? She said something about having a village. Yeah, it takes a village to take the Haitians, right? Remember that? That comment that President Trump made, the joke, so-called joke, right? And you took a lot of them, right? He said, Hillary Clinton said it takes a village, and he said she took a lot of them. Sounds harmless enough until you get to the part about disruption of the Western nuclear family dynamics and return to the collective village that takes care of each other. Those 13 points were set to be taught to students between January 31st and February 4th, according to a starter kit one can find at the Black Lives Matters at School website. Thursdays, when kids were supposed to be learning about dismantling that pesky Western prescribed nuclear family structure, if you were curious, the starter kit also noted this year's Black Lives Matter at School program would focus on 4 things: ending zero tolerance discipline, hiring more Black teachers, mandating Black history and ethics studies in the curriculum for all grades, and funding counselors, not cops. That's kind of difficult to teach to the youngins. So Laina Garcia, a New York City kindergarten teacher and the author of a children's book about the 13 principles according to the National Review, offers some age-appropriate language so that our students or children can grasp the concept in a starter kit. Restorative justice. We know that if you knock down someone's block building, you have to help them rebuild it. You can't just say sorry and walk away. Another way to say that is restorative justice, and it's the idea that we have to help people when something happens to them, even if it was by an accident. In other words, the concepts of equity and reparations have been put into reductionist appeals to emotion so they can be pitched to your first graders. Nice work. On gender affirmation, everybody has the right to choose their own gender by listening to their own heart and mind. Everyone gets to choose if they are a girl or a boy or both or neither or something else. And no one else gets to choose for them, because kids getting this pitch are too young for biology class, apparently. Nettlesome Black Villages point. There are lots of different kinds of families. What makes a family is that it's people who take care of each other. Those people might be related, or maybe they choose to be a family together and they take care of each other. Sometimes when it's lots of families together, it can be called a village. Okay. So I think you get the idea here, right? So let's go back to the other article. You know, that's one way you can really destroy a country, is basically destroy the Western nuclear cell of the family, right? You might call this discrimination or whatever. I don't care what anybody calls this. It's just my opinion. You destroy the so-called Western nuclear cell of a family, you destroy our country. You destroy everything. Guess you save some frogs, right? Or some tortoises, some turtles. Let's see here. I'd like to thank people for contributing to this channel as far as making comments and viewing the channel and sharing this information. I'm going to basically end the live stream with this note, actually reciting a scripture verse. It's in Matthew chapter 5, verse 9. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Okay, again, that's Matthew chapter 5, verse 9. I hope that it come to a peace agreement between Russia and Ukraine, because basically, what was the factor the primary factor or reason why this war began to begin with. The love of money, right? The love of money. They had money in their eyes. They had the minerals. They had gold and oil prospect companies like Burisma. It was a prospecting company that Hunter Biden was working on. Oil and gas prospecting, I guess, I don't know if they do precious metals too. It's an international company. I won't say this is bad or good, but remember, Hunter Biden wasn't the only one on that board of Burisma, Ukrainian board of Burisma. Remember Mitt Romney when he was campaigning, running for president back in 2012? You know his senior campaign advisor, Cofer Black? Let's bring up the bio of Mr. Black. So I want to get this correct. Stand by. I'm not accusing anybody of doing anything wrong, whether it's Cofer Black or anything. I'm just pointing out the fact of his background. In February 2017, the Ukrainian Oil and Gas Corporation Burisma announced the addition of a Black to the company's board of directors, leading the company's security and strategic development. Joseph Cofer Black, okay, he was the senior campaign advisor for Mitt Romney presidential campaign in 2012. He joined Burisma. Let's see here again. In February 2017. That's when Burisma added, and they'll say, okay, well, President Trump was the president back then. What is his background? Former CIA officer who served as the director for Counterterrorism Center in the areas surrounding the September 11th attacks and was later appointed ambassador at large and coordinator for counterterrorism at the State Department by President George W. Bush, serving until his resignation in 2004. Prior to his roles combating terrorism, Black served across the globe in a variety of roles with the Directorate of Operations at the CIA. So I'm pretty sure that him and John Brennan crossed paths along during his CIA career. Remember, he was the director of the Counterterrorism Center in the years surrounding the September 11th attacks. Okay. Gotta delete some of these. Source pages. Okay, so again, let's end this on on a good note, God we trust. All we got to do is stay on the right team and remember, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. That's Matthew chapter 8. Chapter 5, verse 9. Let me make sure I didn't mess up. Matthew chapter 5, verse 9. Yep, that sounds correct. Let me just do a quick search to make sure that's correct, because I don't want to put out disinformation, especially when it refers to the Word of God, right? What in the world? Matthew chapter 5, verse 9. Again, that's I think I might have said 5 verse 8. Matthew 5, verse 9, chapter 5, verse 9. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Okay? I think we need to, and please pray for all these people that are involved in these wars that are just victims of circumstance. Pray that they end these wars. They're needless wars. Basically, we can be civil and try to return back to being civil, right? With that said, good morning, good day, good evening, wherever you're from. This concludes the live stream, and God bless. See here. Semi. Good night.